I can't believe I'm making this video this early in 2025, but this presidency is moving quite quickly. So here we are. The White House today put out a message celebrating the death of DEI. It affected me for two reasons. One being it blows my mind at the level of perversion and backlash DEI has faced. That's number one. And number two, I was one of the founding members of an employee resource group at my old job called BOLD. BOLD stands for the Black Organization of Leadership and Development. And, the goal was to help advance people of color within the organization. It affected me personally because I was one of the few managers in the company that looked like me. When I looked across the company, the vast majority of the leadership was white male, motivated me to help start this organization. So, in light of celebrating the death of DEI, let's talk about what DEI is, the definition. Let's talk about the history of it, and then we're going to talk about the fall of DEI. First, let's start with what is DEI. First, D. D is for diversity. We're talking about diversity in gender, diversity in age, racial diversity, ethnic diversity, physical diversity, meaning disabilities and things of that nature, and neurodiversity. Equity is basically saying what a person identifies as, it does not predict the outcome. Regardless of what a person identifies as, they should receive fair and just treatment. Inclusion takes into account how people feel and empower them to make contributions. Basically, you want to actively engage all the members of that community or that population. And that's generally it. That's what diversity, equity, and inclusion is at its core. You want to create a diverse workforce. You want to include that workforce. You want them to be engaged, and you want them to be treated fair and just. So it blows my mind that it has been perverted in such a way to where people feel like these things are divisive. But I don't live that experience, but let's continue on. And let's talk about the history. In the 1960s, you have the civil rights movement. During this time, in the 1960s, it was mostly focused on race. And then in the 1970s, you had the feminist movement, and then you brought women into the fold. In the 1980s, it evolved even more, and we started including the LGBTQ plus. In the 1990s, businesses started adding diversity professionals, so people who are focused on diversity. And then it also got expanded to including people with disabilities. And then after, the foundation was set from the 1960s through the 1990s, and in the 2000s, we kind of went into more of a maintenance mode. Let's focus on education. We're going to focus about educating people about harassment. We're going to educate people about their unconscious biases and sensitivities. And we're going to expand the marketing to make the marketing look more like the community that they're trying to reach. Inclusion training and things of that nature. So in the 2000s, there is more about education. So when DEI is implemented correctly within organizations, you find that those organizations prosper financially. So when DEI is implemented correctly, organizations see they can reach a larger pool of applicants, and they found that more diverse teams actually benefited them financially. They also find that DEI fosters a sense of belonging for their employees. They also found that it had higher retention, lower turnover rates for their employees. In addition to those benefits, they found that having a diverse workforce created space for innovation. They also found that having a diverse workforce created space for innovation. It helped improve decision making. It also helped improve employee burnout. So when people felt more inclusive, mentally they felt better about their work. And with all of those things in place, it made companies more competitive. Now, with the fall of DEI, so you're thinking to yourself, with all of these benefits, why did DEI fail? From my observation, I feel like there were a few factors that aided in the demise of DEI. One of them being The idea that if you give the opportunity to one of these diverse representations, that there is a white man who is losing out on a job. So it's like a zero sum. If they're getting a job, they're not getting a job. Then another part of this was the unconscious bias training. When we held unconscious bias trainings at my job, you can literally see some white people squirm in their seat, like they wanted to escape the room. Part of that unconscious bias training is you are inherently biased. And so because of that, you have to be aware of it. And when people hear that, what they heard was, oh, I am inherently racist. And I'm not inherently racist. How dare you say that? And blah, blah, blah. Like I literally heard someone say that on a call one time, that they felt like they were being told that they were inherently racist. And there are quite a few people who agreed with that. But in reality, this is just education to be vigilant about these things so that you are aware of them. But instead, they internalized it and they got defensive about it. I don't think their minds were ready for that. And because their minds weren't ready for that, it caused them to reel back even harder. And to me, it created even more of a divide when you're trying to educate them, and made them outright angry at the concept of DEI because they felt like it was an attack on them. And because it was an attack on them, they had to attack it. And that is what caused the death of DEI. Even though it helped with business profits, even though it offered all these positive things, at the end of the day, they felt like it was an attack on them. And so they decided to attack the system. And I don't know if, at least in this society, with a society that struggles to deal with their past of slavery, racism, Jim Crow, sharecropping, burning down of whole cities and bombing of churches, and a society that refuses to deal with that will ever really be ready for an inclusive, equitable, and diverse society. And honestly, it saddens me. It saddens me that I know people who are actively against it, but this is the world we live in. This is my reality as a Black man.